And hello again, everybody. I'm Snapper Lancaster, welcoming you to another edition of the Central Alabama High School Sports Show. Well, we've got a special show for you this week, folks. We're back here at Ross Bridge Sawyer Trail Clubhouse, where we're going to be visiting with a guest in a little while that's going to take part in the show with me. We're going to be doing a show that I've been looking forward to doing for a long, long time, and that's one where we're going to recognize all the champions for this school year, 2018-2019, in the sports here around the Birmingham area, the Birmingham teams that have won championships. So I look forward to that. We've got a lot of teams that won championships. We look forward to talking about them and with my special guest, whom you'll meet in just a few moments. But right now, that's what the show is going to be about today. We're going to review the year 2018-19 and all the championships our Birmingham area, Jefferson County area high schools have won.
You know that you're blessed. Give your taste a whole new spin. Bring your friends and come on in. Take your taste to a different place. It's the taste of hamburger heaven.
Land of Frost Premium is America's best-selling 1-pound deli pouch, now available in 12 delicious flavors, including new flavors of mesquite turkey and cotto salami. High school athletes across the country ask for Land of Frost by name. These great items are available at your local grocer, including Piggly Wiggly, Food Giant, Western supermarkets, and many more. Land of Frost also makes other varieties of lunch meats, including deli shaved bistro and sub sandwich kits. Land of Frost is a proud sponsor of youth sports as well.
At Andrews Sports Medicine, we partner with our patients, trying to help them overcome the obstacles that keep them from achieving their goals.
This practice aggressively pursues victory over injury, over pain, over limitation, over anything that's going to keep you from being the best you can be.
It starts with our non-surgical physicians who are trained in sports medicine and orthopedic injuries. We have specialists in sports medicine with shoulders, elbows, and knees. We have hip specialists that do only hip surgery, including arthroscopy, minimally invasive resurfacing, and total hip replacement if needed. We have joint replacement surgeons. We have spine surgeons. We have surgeons that specialize in foot and ankle surgery and in hand surgery. So just about all the specialties of orthopedics are covered at Andrews Sports Medicine.
What makes the great surgeons great is their volume of experience at making decisions, whether that's intraoperative decisions, post-operative decisions, pre-operative decisions, the decision to operate on somebody or not operate on them. And so our volume here breeds good decision making. That gives us an edge in terms of making decisions for our patients, which ultimately is a lot of times the difference between success and failure. The teams, the players, the parents have confidence in us because they know we're going to communicate with them. We're going to create a plan unique to that athlete or that person, and we're going to get them back to their thing and as quickly and as safely as we can.
At Andrews Sports Medicine, our mission is to partner with our patients and to help them succeed and achieve victory. Whether you're a weekend warrior, a grandparent with a shoulder problem, or a professional athlete, you get the same care, the same high-level technology, the same aggressiveness that we would in a professional athlete, and we treat everyone the same way. None of us like to lose. We're all very competitive, and we're not going to lose against their illness or their injury.
And folks, welcome back. You can tell I've got my special guest for this show sitting beside me now. And of course, we're talking about Josh Bean, the AL.com sports writer, high school sports writer. And Josh, you could probably let people know exactly better than I what your job is exactly.
Yeah, so just like you said, I cover high school sports for AL.com. I'm based here in the Birmingham office. I've been doing it, been covering preps in Alabama continuously since 2008. I started out for our company working in Mobile, and then in 2014 I transitioned to Birmingham. And so my job is to coordinate our prep coverage statewide, but I also serve as our Birmingham prep writer. So So yeah, it's a busy job, and we just finished another season where a lot of local teams win championships.
They sure did, and that's one thing in the opening I talked about is that we're going to talk about the championships won here in the 2018-2019 season. So that starts out, of course, with the fall, and the first championship that was won in the fall of all things, we didn't have any in volleyball,
That's
so
right.
it surprised us a little bit. But in Class 6A, the Homewood boys cross country team won. That doesn't surprise me. They've had a good program there for a long time.
Yeah, and Homewood's boys and girls swept those cross country championships last year. I mean, and their track season, we'll talk about that a little bit later once they got into the winter and the spring. But so much of their track team success was built on these distance runners. These, Will Stone won a third straight individual championship on the boys' side in 6A for Homewood. That anchored that team that won the state championship. And both of those, the boys and the girls, they had a very successful cross-country season, capped it with winning those 2 state championships. And then, of course, that made a big difference to once they moved into the spring season.
Well, it's sort of wasn't a surprise because, like I said, they've always had an outstanding
And they do have a
program there.
fantastic cross-country program.
And I also know then we shoot the football because that was the only titles won.
Yeah.
And then, of course, here we come into the football season, and we had Pinson Valley.
Yeah, second in a row for Pinson
Right.
Valley, and so much of that so much of their success the last couple of years, of course, is based on their quarterback, Bo Nix. He ended up winning Mr. Football after the season was over. He early enrolled at Auburn. Played high school football for his dad, who was also a quarterback at Auburn, and so. When we kind of spin the Bo Nix story forward, we wonder, will he be the starter at Auburn? How quickly will he take over there? But when we look back on his career, he had an amazing career. It started at Scottsboro, then his dad got the Pinson Valley job. They end up winning back-to-back state championships. Pinson Valley never won a state championship. They won the 2018 championship, and then in 2017, then in 18, they followed up with a second straight state championship. That was really impressive.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's another Nix coming along that might be playing quarterback.
That's right. His younger brother is a quarterback. Having talked to Patrick Nix at Pinson Valley, he's really excited about coaching his younger son that's coming along to play quarterback. But those will be big shoes to fill. Bo had such an amazing career. Like I said, he started out, he had a great career at Scottsboro. His last 3 years of high school football as a starter, sophomore, junior, and senior, he only lost 2 games. One of those was to Hoover. He just had such a fantastic career. And then, as I said, he capped it with being Mr. Football. So, when we look at that Pinson Valley team, great season, fantastic team. And then, they'll see if they can three-peat. Just a couple of years ago, we were talking about, can Pinson Valley win a championship? Now we're talking about, can they win a third in a row?
Right. Well, I tell you what, I don't know if people really realized the ability, one, that Coach Patrick Nix has had through the years, been an outstanding coach. And then, of course, it's a little bit different because it puts a little different kind of pressure on you when the star that you've got leading your team is your son.
It is. And there's an interesting dynamic there. I was really impressed with how well both of those guys handled that, right? The son has to handle that really well, but Patrick handled it as well as I think a head coach possibly could. And their success, look, they were able to sit at the dinner table every night and talk football if they wanted to. So having your quarterback at the dinner table every night had to help. But there's some pressure involved. But there was always going to be pressure on Bo Nix. He was a son of a guy who played quarterback, who went to Auburn, who had a lot of success. And so when he became a quarterback, I think the entire family knew what they were signing up for. But I think they handled the pressure side of it really well. And then that pressure got magnified for Bo's senior year because they had already won a state championship. And then, he had so much personal success. So like I said, I was just really impressed with the way they could handle that, and I think they'll handle the moving forward. I think Patrick will handle the post-Bo Nix era really well. They start off the season playing Hewitt-Trussville. That won't be an easy task in the opener. But I'm fascinated to see how that team plays. I think they'll still be really good. They might not be quite as good on offense, breaking in a new quarterback, and you have to replace Mr. Football. That's not easy.
But the other thing, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later too, is the other quality athletes they have there.
Oh yeah, and they've got a bunch of them. JaQuincy McKinstry is, he's considered the number one prospect, our state number one prospect in 2021. He's just a sophomore, but he's already had a great season last year. He's going to be a defensive back in college, but he plays some receiver. They might move him around some on offense. He's a dynamic playmaker. But, they got some other players. It's not like the cupboard's going to be bare, but it will be different having to break in a new quarterback.
Well, folks, that's sort of, there wasn't a whole lot of championships won in the fall part of the year, but we'll pick those trophies up as we go along. We're going to take a quick break. We come back, we'll look at indoor sports, basketball, wrestling, and so forth. So don't you go away. We'll be right back.
At Andrew Sports Medicine, we partner with our patients, trying to help them overcome the obstacles that keep them from achieving their goals.
This practice aggressively pursues victory over injury, over pain, over limitation, over anything that's going to keep you from being the best you can be.
It starts with our non-surgical physicians who are trained in sports medicine and orthopedic injuries. We have specialists in sports medicine, shoulders, elbows, and knees. We have hip specialists that do only hip surgery, including arthroscopy, minimally invasive resurfacing, and total hip replacement if needed. We have joint replacement surgeons. We have spine surgeons. We have surgeons that specialize in foot and ankle surgery and in hand surgery. So just about all the specialties of orthopedics are covered at Andrew Sports Medicine.
What makes the great surgeons great is their volume of experience at making decisions, whether that's intraoperative decisions, post-operative decisions, pre-operative decisions, the decision to operate on somebody or not operate on them. And so our volume here breeds good decision making. That gives us an edge in terms of making decisions for our patients, which ultimately is a lot of times the difference between success and failure. The teams, the players, the parents have confidence in us because they know we're going to communicate with them, we're going to create a plan unique to that athlete or that person, and we're going to get them back to their thing and as quickly and as safely as we can.
At Andrew Sports Medicine, our mission is to partner with our patients and to help them succeed and achieve victory. Whether you're a weekend warrior, a grandparent with a shoulder problem, or a professional athlete, you get the same care, the same high-level technology, the same aggressiveness that we would in a professional athlete, and we treat everyone the same way. None of us like to lose. We're all very competitive, and we're not going to lose against their illness or their injury.
And this will be your premium right here.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say I combined home and auto with State Farm.
Saved $760.
Love this guy.
Okay, does it bother anybody else that the mime is talking? Freaky.
Bundle home and auto, and you could save $760.
That's 760 very good reasons to call Alan Gurdeau in Trussville today.
And folks, welcome back. And as we look back over the championship year of 2018-2019, now we get into the winter sports. And the first one we have is indoor track boys. And it looks like Josh, Homewood, Hoover both come away with titles. And then the girls for Mountain Brook came away with titles. So indoor track, we had 3 championship teams this year.
Yeah, and that Hoover has just been such a powerhouse in track, really the last 5 or 6 years. But, all 3 of those over the mountain schools that you mentioned, Homewood, Hoover, Mountain Brook, they are historically good in cross country and track, partially based on when we're talking about those two sports in particular, that's based on their distance runners. But, with Hoover, I think sprinting, they had another really good year. And, you know, Homewood obviously did too. So I think that, you know, when you look at those indoor tracks, those aren't, it's not as if any of those programs came out of nowhere to win, but it was impressive to see all three of them take home.
Right, and of course at Homewood you got Tom Islanger there, and then you've got Devin Hine, who is a staple.
Yeah.
He has been a solid coach for many years and has won a lot of championships. And then on the girls' side at Mountain Brook, Michael McGovern. But it all starts with your coaches, but it ends with the athletes and that the athletes
it does.
have.
And I think all three of those schools do a really good job, it seems to me from the outside looking in, of identifying the right track kids in middle school, building them. I don't get a sense that they have a lot of kids that just show up as juniors and seniors and all of a sudden they're track kids. They build that for years to get them ready to win, to be at a championship level and a championship caliber. All of those coaches do a really good job.
And then you get into wrestling, and it's unique. This year, Moody wins in class 1 through 5A, McAdory in 6A, and Thompson in 7A.
Yeah, and Thompson has been such a powerhouse for the last decade in wrestling. And, you know, wrestling is such a unique sport because more than half the weight classes are for athletes 160 pounds and below. And so it's the place where athletes, small, quick, strong, aggressive athletes can really thrive. And so on the football field, you know, if you're 130 pounds, it's really hard to be effective. You know, if you're a 5'5", 130-pound player, it's hard to be effective as a basketball player. But as a wrestler, you can be a state champion. You can be the best 130-pound wrestler in the state. So all of those are programmed. You know, Moody's been knocking on the door in 1A through 5A. Thompson has been a powerhouse. And then McAdory, I think McAdory, of the three champs this year, was
dark horse,
was the surprise, right? I mean, that's been a really good, solid wrestling program for a long time, but maybe not quite to that championship level. That was a program that really did a good job of stepping forward this season and taking home that blue map. And, you know, it's such a hard sport to participate in, to thrive in. And for folks who have never been to the state tournament in Huntsville, it really is an amazing event. You know, they've got multiple mats going, and there's so much energy in the gym there, or the arena in Huntsville. And so, you know, you get to the end of that weekend, and those teams win those, take home those blue maps. It really is emotional, and you know, it's a sport that, you know, wrestling is a sport in our state that we saw a dip in participation there for a while. We're seeing it back on the upswing, and you know, I think that's been a really a positive development
and
for
the
our
one
state.
thing that I wanted to do, Josh, too, was recognize the fact that at Moody it's Greg Jeffcoat, the outstanding coach there, Blake Dutton from McAdory, and then, of course, Sean Wilson has been there a while, and he's built that program
Right,
up.
that Thompson program, it really is. I mean, you know, you start looking around the state at what are the premier programs, Thompson, Oxford, you know, those are probably the first two to roll off your tongue.
And then we go into the basketball arena, and I'm telling you, we had some outstanding champions last year. Just for instance, in boys basketball, 5A, Winona, 6A, Pinson Valley, double sports, Mountain Brook, no surprise, they seem to be there every year battling for it, if not winning it. And then on the girls' side, Hoover wins a title.
Yeah, on the boys' side, the three largest classifications all were won by teams from Metro Birmingham. So as you mentioned, Winona. The Pinson Valley, you know, that's a really impressive double to do football and boys basketball. Mountain Brook, they won their third straight 7A championship. You know, and that's I'll be honest with you, I wasn't aware of it until after they had won it, but that's the first time that any school has won three straight in the state's largest classifications. It's been done in some others, but it's never been done in the largest classification. Of course, a lot of that credit goes to Trendon Watford, who was two-time Mr. Basketball, recently committed and signed with LSU. But, I mean, Trendon made them go, but they were more than a one-man team. Bucky McMillan does a great job with their program. And then the Hoover girls, I mean, like that's been a program that's, you know, they're at the top of the rankings year after year after year. And that doesn't mean they win it every year like the Mountain Brook boys, but they're always in that conversation. And Crystal Johnson did a really good job again. And I think they've got a great chance to maybe repeat.
Well, I tell you what, getting back to Mountain Brook for just a second, I call it buckyball for the simple reason it's the only type where they play 32 minutes of heck. And guys, every player on that team has got a part to play.
They do, and one thing I think we saw from them this year was maybe they didn't have the depth that they've had in previous seasons. Trenton made up for that a little bit, but you're right. They play a very consistent style. You know the relentlessness that they're going to play with. Bucky convinces them to play that way. He played for Dwayne Rebo at Birmingham Southern, and much of what they do is patterned off of what they did all those successful years at Birmingham Southern. But yeah, I mean, they play a specific style. They believe in it, and it works.
And like you said, though, they had that one piece, that superstar, if you want to put it that way, that has been the catalyst there. But it's the system that works, and even it can work when you got an outstanding player that has to play this type.
Yeah, I mean, look, they won championships before they had Trendon, before they had a Mr. Basketball. I think that there's no question they're in that conversation. They're going to be in the mix next year. Whether they win a fourth one in a row or not, that'll be fun to see if they can do it. But yeah, I mean, their style of play, they're going to be successful.
And folks, that wraps up the winter portion of the show. Now we've got the spring portion coming and more championships because the Birmingham area is loaded with not only outstanding talent, but the outstanding coaches that take them there. We'll take a quick break. We come back, we'll look at the spring sports. Don't you go away.
Take your taste to a different place. It's the taste of hamburger heaven. A taste of heaven is always best. Now you know that you're blessed. Give your taste a whole new spin. Bring your friends and come on in. Take your taste to a different place. It's the taste of hamburger heaven.
The next time you need electrical work, whether it be commercial or residential, you need to call Huffman Electrical Contractors, a company that's been in business for over 35 years. They've served clients not only locally in the Birmingham area and all over the state, but have clients outside the state of Alabama as well. Whether it's a new building or remodeling an older building or home, they can handle the job for you. Once again, that's Huffman Electrical Contractors. The number to call is 205-661-5005. That's 205-661-5005. Where at Huffman Electrical Contractors, a satisfied customer is always their #1 objective. And folks, we're back, and in this segment we're going to be talking about spring sports. Quite a few trophies won in the spring sports, and we'll start off with the boys tennis. For instance, in 6A, Briarwood wins a title, and in 7A, Vestavia Hills wins a title, and that's in boys tennis. And in girls tennis, Mountain Brook in Class 7A. So 3 tennis titles. Does that surprise you at all?
It doesn't really surprise me. I mean, Vestavia, Mountain Brook, UMS Wright and St. Paul's, both from Mobile. I mean, those are programs that have historically been really, really good. Vestavia and Mountain Brook, they're good year after year after year. So no big surprise there. Briarwood, all 3 of those schools are drawing from players that all live very close to one another in the over the mountain area. So no big surprises there, but strong work again from all 3 of those programs.
And once again, the outstanding coaches, that's where it all starts. For Briarwood, it was Jeremy Means, the boys tennis coach, Nathan Miles at Vestavia Hills, of course, and Susan Farlow, who's been a fixture there at Mountain Brook with her tennis program for years.
She's been part of that program for years and years and years, and a big reason for all of their success.
And so there's really not a whole lot of surprises in that. Although they do it with such regularity, you come to sort of expect it, and that's almost unfair because every year is a new challenge. And then in outdoor track, we had some successful boys, 2 championships, and 1 girls in outdoor. And the Class 6A outdoor, Homewood again. No surprise. Hoover, you know they got the athletes, you know they got the coach, so that's not a real big surprise. And at Homewood, Tom Eslinger's making a name for himself. He's got an outstanding program that seems to always produce a champion or champions every year.
Yeah, you know, Homewood was the school this year that won the most AHSAA state championships. They won 7, and 5 of those were somehow track related. You know, these 2 were boys and girls outdoor track. Earlier we talked about their cross-country success. We talked about their indoor track success. So, you know, you look at that particular school, and when we ask that question, well, who won the most championships? You know, you look back at that at the end of the year. I think the HSA hands out something like 120 blue maps every school year, but 7 of those went to Homewood, and this was a big reason. That track program was just amazing.
And so, as the old saying goes, high school track in the Birmingham, Jefferson County area is very alive and well.
Absolutely. You know, when you see those teams show up at the same meet, if you can have success against the teams in your area, you've got a great chance to do well at the state meet.
And now a sport, we had a championship in the sport that is growing in the high school realm, and that's soccer. And Hoover took the boys soccer title this year. Now, and on the girls' side, Homewood again, you mentioned that as one of their trophies, and Vestavia Hills comes back with another. And soccer is slowly but surely picking up some steam, and I think, and I'd be interested in what you think, Josh, that part of it has to do with parents sort of steering their kids away from football a little bit.
I do think that, you know, part of the youth scene in Metro Birmingham is very vibrant, and part of that is there are parents who see football as a much better alternative, particularly for younger kids, as an alternative to football. You know, you mentioned that Vestavia Hills girls team. That was maybe the most impressive team all year long. They went 23-0. They didn't lose a match. They didn't tie a match, and yes, that Vestavia Hills girls soccer team, that was their third state championship in the last 4 seasons. But to have a perfect season, I mean, that's so hard to do, particularly in soccer where you have so many, the margin of error is so small. You have so many games that are 1-0 or 2-1, or, you know, they went into a shootout in the semifinals and beat Oak Mountain in the playoffs. But to not have a loss, to not have a tie the full season, and then win a state championship was really impressive. And the Hoover boys, you know, I'll be honest with you, that was a little bit of a surprise. I mean, Oak Mountain has been the team to beat from Birmingham. You know, Hoover, they kept winning in the playoffs.
That's sort of the yardstick you judge.
It is. I mean, it's the same way with Hoover football, right? Everybody's trying to beat Hoover football. On the boys soccer side, it's Oak Mountain, and so, you know, Hoover got over that hurdle, got into the championship round, and then ultimately found a way to win. That was really impressive. And, you know, it's hard to say. Maybe, I mean, it's surprising anytime we talk about Hoover as an underdog, but I think that Hoover really sort of was a boys soccer underdog, and so for them to go out and win that championship was really impressive.
Well, and then, of course, we've got boys and girls golf, and, of course, we're thinking in the Birmingham area 5, 6, and 7A is generally where the play is going to come from. We got one title out of that, and it was from, on the boys' side, and it looks like that was the only one, none on the girls' side, and of course it was Mountain Brook. Once again, that's not really a surprise.
No, I mean, that program's, you know, when we think about those spring sports, you know, golf, tennis, track, those are things that Mountain Brook, I mean, Mountain Brook's won more state championships than any high school in AHSA history. I think it's 231 championships now. Wow. And a lot of those, of course, have been in those spring sports. And, you know, you mentioned how much of attention here in the Birmingham area is 5A, 6A, and 7A. But, you know, in girls soccer this year, we had Westminster Oak Mountain win a state championship. And that was really impressive to see that team do it. They had gotten really close a couple of times the last few years. You know, their girls basketball program has gotten close, you know, has gotten into the state semifinals. But to see that program get to Huntsville, get in the state tournament, cap it with a state championship was really
cool. We got
a
few outstanding private schools
and
here in the
that is a very small school. They do not play football. So, you know, track has probably been the program for them that has done the best, but that girls soccer program's been really good.
And then, of course, now that's going to get us down into baseball and softball.
Yeah.
And that's how we'll end up the year. And I guess this is the part that surprises me the most. In 5A, 6A, and 7A, softball, we had some success in softball.
Mm-hmm.
One baseball championship, 5A Springfield.
Yeah.
And then 2 in softball, and that was Hayden and Hewitt Trustful. How much of a surprise was that to you that we only had that amount in the
Well, I think in
sports?
baseball, one of the really interesting things is, particularly in 7A, those teams, only one of them can really get to the semifinals because of the way the playoffs set up. They're all playing one another early in the playoffs. So Vestavia was really good. Hoover was really good. Hewitt Trustful was fantastic again in baseball. But we see those teams sort of beat up on each other. And in 6A, you see the same sort of thing. Gardendale had a really good year and made it deep into the playoffs. Hueytown, and they ended up playing one another in the playoffs. So sometimes that's how it works out in the playoffs. On the softball side, at the state tournament, what Hewitt Trustful did was really amazing. The softball tournament is set up to be 2 days, but sometimes weather intervenes, and that's what happened with Hewitt Trustful. So they had a long weather delay on Friday at the state tournament. They had a weather delay in their last game. They won they beat Baker. They eliminated Baker on a 3-run homer, extra innings. They won it. I looked at my watch because I was there. It was 11:32 p.m. And then they had to come back and play the next day. And to win the championship, they had to play all the way through the elimination bracket and then beat somebody twice in the because it's double elimination. They had to beat that team twice in the championship round, and they managed to do that. It was a long, exhausting day for Hewitt Trustful to do that, but to see them win that championship was really amazing. And it was magnified by the way they won it. And then Hayden was the opposite. Hayden won their 4 games, knocked out their 4 games in the state championship, took their blue map home. But Hewitt Trustful really had to work for that. That was the last day of the high school season. And so to see them win it and to see how, just the way they celebrated, and they were exhausted, but they were so exuberant with the way that they won. It was really impressive.
And so once again, congratulations to all our state champions. Now, we've reviewed the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
When we come back, we're going to get a bird's eye view of what to expect this fall when the football season kicks off, because that's what everybody's waiting for. Once the summer gets over, summer's just started. And so we'll look at that, and we'll do that in just a moment. Don't you go away. We'll be right back.
And this will be your premium right here.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say I combined home and auto with State Farm.
Saved $760.
Love this guy.
Okay, does it bother anybody else that the mime is talking? Freaky.
Bundle home and auto, and you could save $760.
That's 760 very good reasons to call Alan Gurdeau in Trussville today.
At Andrews Sports Medicine, we partner with our patients, trying to help them overcome the obstacles that keep them from achieving their goals.
This practice aggressively pursues victory over injury, over pain, over limitation, over anything that's going to keep you from being the best you can be.
It starts with our non-surgical physicians who are trained in sports medicine, orthopedic injuries. We have specialists in sports medicine, with shoulders, elbows, and knees. We have hip specialists that do only hip surgery, including arthroscopy, minimally invasive resurfacing, and total hip replacement if needed. We have joint replacement surgeons. We have spine surgeons. We have surgeons that specialize in foot and ankle surgery and in hand surgery. So just about all the specialties of orthopedics are covered at Andrews Sports Medicine.
What makes the great surgeons great is their volume of experience at making decisions, whether that's intraoperative decisions, post-operative decisions, pre-operative decisions, the decision to operate on somebody or not operate on them. And so our volume here breeds good decision making. That gives us an edge in terms of making decisions for our patients, which ultimately is a lot of times the difference between success and failure. The teams, the players, the parents have confidence in us because they know we're going to communicate with them. We're going to create a plan unique to that athlete or that person, and we're going to get them back to their thing and as quickly and as safely as we can.
In Injury Sports Medicine, our mission is to partner with our patients and to help them succeed and achieve victory. Whether you're a weekend warrior, a grandparent with a shoulder problem, or a professional athlete, you get the same care, the same high-level technology, the same aggressiveness that we would in a professional athlete, and we treat everyone the same way. None of us like to lose. We're all very competitive, and we're not going to lose against their illness or their injury.
And folks, welcome back. And in this last segment, what we're going to do is give our opinion of what we might think will happen in the opening season 2019, the football season. And Josh, I know that's always a popular time for everybody, football season.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be here before you know it. I mean, we're sitting here today, you know, we're less than 100 days to when they'll kick off, and you know, everybody just went through spring practice, and like I said, it'll be here before we know it.
And I know we've got 2 or 3, 4 teams we want to talk about just very quickly, because down in 2A, Tarrant is in that situation. Of course, everybody realizes it's by population, so Tarrant has lost in size through the years. But you think they might have a shot of doing something?
Well, I mean, I think they'll be an interesting team, just as you said, they're in 2A. The travel can be an issue with them. They don't have their own stadium. They play their home games at Fultondale, which is only a few miles away from their campus. And it's a program that struggled the last few years. But, you know, we never know with them. I think that they're always an interesting team to watch.
And we got a couple of teams, Midfield and Fultondale in 3A, and both of those schools, sometimes they have pretty good football teams.
They do. You know, Midfield is a team that has struggled with numbers. I mean, the last couple of years, I think, you know, they've played a full season with about 30 kids, but Rod Isaac does a really good job, and they find a way every year to get in the playoffs. Fultondale is an interesting team. You know, Don Dover's now the coach there. Right. Jason Jones has been their best player the last few years, but he's now transferred to Center Point. So we'll see how that might change the dynamic there. And then, you know, in 4A we have Leeds. We just learned that, you know, they'll have a new coach. Jerry Hood is taking over that program.
Who is?
Jerry Hood.
Really?
So we just learned that this week, and so that'll be fascinating. You know, he had a lot of success at Clay Chalkville. He won a state championship there, made it to another championship game, had a bunch of 10-win seasons. He didn't have a lot of time to put in what he wants to put in that first year, but his track record tells us that Leeds will be good and good pretty fast. And
as we look into 5A, we've got a few schools. Of course, Briarwood always jumps out at you, and maybe Pleasant Grove. I don't know who you might see on that list that might cause some problems for people, but those would be two that stand out real quickly to me.
Briarwood and Ramsey. You know, Ramsey's been so good the last few years out of the city of Birmingham. Briarwood is fascinating to me this year. I don't think we're going to see anything that's hugely different than what we saw with Fred Yancey, but the truth is, Fred Yancey's been there for a long time. You know, he's been the head coach there. They did things, you know, he did things his way, and it was super successful. Matthew Forrester played for Coach Yancey. He's coached with him. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of changes, but the truth is there's a new sheriff in town there, so it'll be interesting to see what that program does this year. And then, you know, we sort of have the same thing at Winona. That's a program that's won a lot the last 5 or 6 years. Ronald Cheatham, I think he's been the head coach there since 1990. They know what they're doing. They have a system in place. It'll be interesting to see how those are all teams at that 5A level that I really like.
And so as we graduate on up to 6A, what do you see there? Because we've got some outstanding teams, outstanding coaching, and of course Homewood is one of the teams that seems to always do very well. But Chelsea, Helena are trying to bust through a little bit. But you got a lot of 6A schools. Clay Chalkville's always there. I think Gardendale's going to be a whole lot better with the Chad Eads there.
Yeah, you know, this is interesting. You know, we have that Region 5, which is where, as you mentioned, Pelham, Chelsea, Jackson Olin, remember, went 10-0 last year. It's the first time that ever happened in school history. I think they'll try to build on that. Quindarius Robinson, their defensive end, outside linebacker, is a big-time recruit. I think he's playing in the Under Armour All-American game. So I guess this will be 4 years in a row that they have that level of a recruit coming out of their program. I think they're the team to beat in that region. Why not? They were 10-0 last year. But Homewood will be really good again. The other region that you point out, look, Pinson Valley's a defending state champ. Right. I think that's a team. They've beaten Clay Chalkville in the semifinals the last 2 years. So that's a program that is at that elite level still. I think Hueytown's a fascinating team. Roydell Williams, their running back, is already committed to Alabama. He ran for 2,700 yards last year. I talked to him just a few weeks ago. He told me that his goal is to try to get to 3,000 this year. I think he's got a legitimate chance to do it because of how much they're going to give him the ball. Last year everybody knew he was going to get the ball, and teams had a lot of struggle stopping him. He's a year bigger, stronger, faster. So I think they should be good. And then you mentioned Gardendale. I think there's no reason for us to think that Chad Eads isn't going to have some success there. He's had plenty of time now to implement his program. Will Crowder, their quarterback, is a guy they really feel good about. He's already has a lot of experience under his belt. So I think in that region, they're a really interesting team.
Well, now, as we look into 7A, and that's the one that everybody, sort of holds their hat on here in the Birmingham area. Of course, right off the chute, you feel like Hewitt-Truss will probably be good again, Thompson good again, and Mountain Brook maybe. I always am hoping that Vestavia, will get everything going. But let me tell you, Buddy Anderson told me a long time ago, he said, Snapper, we can only play with what mom and daddy spit out.
That's right.
How that goes. But I hate to use this term, and I don't know, it may be a wrong thing to say, but there's a little bit of truth to it. It seems like the recruiting has entered the high school scene a little bit.
What we do see is there's no question that what we see is free agency on the high school scene. We have more player movement, or it seems like we have more player movement than we've ever had. So, yeah, I think players look at who's ahead of them on the depth chart, what kind of offense or defensive scheme another school might use, and might think, hey, I might be able to go and thrive here better. If you're a wide receiver, for instance, you probably feel better being at a place like Thompson where they throw it a lot instead of being at Mountain Brook or Vestavia, which are still traditional mostly run the ball type offenses. So I think we see a little bit of that. When I look ahead to this fall, I think question number one, I think everybody thinks about is, will Hoover get back to the championship game? And for most schools, you get to the semifinals and they throw a parade. At Hoover, it was, it's like somebody died, right? They expect to be in the championship game every year. Thompson got there last year. So that's number one. How good will Hoover be? How will they respond? In the spring, I talked to Robbie Ashford, who will be their quarterback in baseball season, and asked him, what have football workouts been like? And he said, well, I've been playing baseball, but look, I know our team is really hungry. And I talked to Josh Niblett about it, and I said, how hungry is this team? And he said, I don't think they're hungry. I think they're starving. And so that team seems really motivated. Hewitt-Trussville and Thompson both have to replace quarterbacks. Both of their guys, Paul Tyson and Talia Tungavailoa, are at Alabama now, and they're battling one another now. So those teams, they have to, and so much of what they do with that spread offense is based on the quarterback. So that'll be interesting to see how those teams fare with a new guy.
If they can't replace those people that are so important at that quarterback position, then all of a sudden it makes you think Hoover could come back again.
Right, and also, in that region, all of those teams are so close together. So, it makes you think, what about a team like Mountain Brook? who, remember, started off 7-0 last year. Right. Or, Spain Park, a team that just a few years ago played for a state championship. So there's a lot of good teams in that region. Oak Mountain is a team that started a freshman at quarterback last year who had a lot of success early in the year. He'll be back, so they have something to build on. And then, you mentioned Vestavia. I mean, they still run that very traditional offense, but, I mean, we're not fooling anybody. It's not like Buddy Anderson forgot how to coach, right? So all of those teams have the potential to get in the playoffs and make some noise. But I think the number one storyline there will be, what about Hoover? How good will they be?
And as usual, the one great thing about it, all of us look forward to high school football when it finally gets here.
Yeah, but now we're already talking about it. We're already anticipating it, right? But it's a little bit down the road. By the time we get here, but by the time football gets here, fans will be chomping at the bit, just like the players will to get out there on the field.
Well, Josh, I've enjoyed it. I've looked forward to doing this. I've wanted to do a show like this for a while, and it's always fun to look ahead.
Amen.
And see what you accomplish behind you.
Yep.
But once again, thanks for sitting here with me. I appreciate it. Folks, we're only a few weeks away from the opening of another outstanding high school football and athletic season. So enjoy your summer. It's going to go by fast, and then we'll be right back here doing it all over again, and we look forward to it. Once again, thanks for Josh Bean sitting in with me, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. Till then, you know what the snapper always says, bye.